Hey, welcome. Welcome to Prospecting, brought to us today by Infofree. And my name is Mark Hunter, the Sales Hunter. And I recently came out with the book, High Profit Prospecting. And I'm really pleased to be talking about how do we prospect better. And we have a lot of customers of the Infofree product on this event today. And I'm really glad you're here because I tell you what, isn't it a great system? The ability to geographically control who you're prospecting and going after it. And that's going to be some of the things that we're going to be talking about. Now, let me just give you a little peek under the tent. I want to invite you to ask any questions that you want. Now, we're going to jam this system up here. I know we are. So I'm going to give you my email, mark@thesaleshunter.com. Don't hesitate to send me an email anytime, mark@thesaleshunter.com. In fact, do yourself a favor, put Infofree up in the subject line. You know what? I'll make sure I answer yours first when you put Infofree in up there. Well, like I said, Infofree asked me to put this together. We're putting together a whole series of webinars to really make sure that we understand how to be prospecting better. Now you say, hey, what's my background and so forth? Well, let me tell you something. I've been talking prospecting for a number of years. And so we're going to really talk today about how do we find the right prospect. When I say a number of years, these are just a few of the clients that I've had a chance to work with over the last 15 years of doing just this, helping people prospect. Some of the content I'll be sharing here today is going to come out of my book, High Profit Prospecting, but let's dig right into it. Hey, first of all, thinking about prospecting is not prospecting. One of the biggest single issues, people ask me all the time, Mark, I got to get my prospecting plan right. It's just not working. It's just not working. And I asked them, I said, how much time are you really spending prospecting? And it really comes down to it that they're not spending any time, but they're thinking about prospecting. You see, one of the biggest challenges we have in trying to find the right customers is having dedicated time. Why? Because we are famous. And I put myself in this. We're famous for making excuses. We take care of existing customers. We take care of current problems. We take care of anything and everything out there, but going after new prospects. One of the biggest things that I challenge people, and one of the first questions I ask people when they say, I'm having a hard time prospecting, I say, what does your calendar look like? Do you have dedicated time on your calendar with which to prospect? Now, we'll be digging into this one a lot more because I'm going to share with you some really cool strategies as to how to find the right time. I'll share with you some more later on in this event, but as we do more webinars to really help you really prospect incredibly high level, I'll share those. Now, let's just share something really kind of simple here. You know, prospecting with integrity, and you get clients with integrity. Now, what do I mean by this? You know, one of the challenges that we always want to keep in mind when we're prospecting is we get who we go after. And I say this very, very much, very intently, and I say this for a very simple reason. All of your prospecting strategies must be done with integrity. And why? Because the number one objective you're doing when you're prospecting is to earn the right, the privilege, honor, and respect to be able to talk with that prospect again. Because many times, one contact isn't just good enough. I mean, you can't just contact a person once and think they're going to suddenly buy from you. No, many times it's multiple contacts, but they have to be done with integrity. But anyway, hey, let's get into the 4 key critical issues that I wanted to be talking about today. And number one is, what makes a good prospecting program? Now, this one really befuddles, and that's the last time I will use that word, but let me tell you something. This one really messes up a lot of people, and here's why. Because it's like they're beating their head against the wall. We've all, how many of you, if I were to ask you, how many of you have had challenges where you think you're prospecting, but you're really not, or you try something, but you don't? You see, don't start what you can't finish. The reason too many salespeople feel they're beating their head against the wall with prospecting and they look for this magic solution is because they're literally beating their head against the wall because they start what they can't finish. Now, in future sessions, I'll share with you what should the right frequency be, what should the right cadence be. But I'm really going to work through on this. And hey, a question already came through is this, will there be a replay? Yes, there will be. You bet. We're going to make sure we archive all of these. You see what I just did? I just responded to one of the questions that came through on the chat board. So go ahead and fire those questions away. But yes, we will be making a replay available. Now, okay, let's get back to this whole thing. You've got to have a plan. But here's the whole deal. You've got to decide what is the floor you want to get to. Now, I use this example of 3 elevators because I can get on one of 3 elevators here and I can go to the same floor or I can go to different floors. Here's one of the things that I always have people do. I want you to develop a prospecting plan that fits the profile of the customer you're going after. Now, what does this mean? This means something very simple. You may have one strategy for this type of customer, different floor of the building. You may have a different strategy for this type of customer, a different floor in the building. And you may have still another type. Now, here's why I recommend that you will want to have multiple strategies. And again, I'll walk you through how to develop all of these. The reason you want to have multiple strategies is because you're going to be able to reach out to and get different customers more effectively. One of the biggest challenges I always see is that people wind up trying to use the same tactic with everybody, and it doesn't work. I may be in real estate, and I'm looking for prospects, and the prospecting strategy I use, I'm looking for people who are going to list their home or looking to buy a home. The strategy I'm going to use for a more high-end homeowner is going to be different than a first-time homeowner. It's going to be completely different. Don't think that you can use the same strategy. Now, when I mean breaking apart the strategy, I mean your telephone messages are going to be different. The time of day that you call is going to be different. All of the things that you do from a prospecting standpoint are going to be different. So this is why I say you will wind up beating your head against the wall if you try to do the same thing with everybody. Now, does this make it more confusing in developing a prospecting strategy? No, it doesn't. It really, in fact, makes it easier. It's really like playing on the playground. Now, think about this. You go look at a playground, you watch kids on some playground equipment. What are they doing? They're running from piece to piece. I mean, one moment they may be on the slide, the next moment they might be over on a climbing tower, the next moment they might be, but what are they doing? Every time they're every time they're on a toy or on a, whatever you call the playground equipment, they're focused. They're all in until they get distracted. And then suddenly they get distracted. They run from the slide over to the climbing pole, or they run from, you see, this is one of the other big challenges from a prospecting standpoint. Don't get distracted. I said up front, don't start what you can't finish. And what this means is you've got to execute through to the end before you know whether or not the plan you have is even going to work. Too many people, what I see happening is they wind up and they make one set of phone calls and they don't get a response. And they say, well, that plan doesn't work. That plan doesn't work. How do you know? You haven't tested it. You haven't tested it. Now, I got some more. Okay, is this going to be covering B2B and B2C? We're going to be covering both, because here's something I found. Thank you for continuing to pop in the questions. And I apologize. I got to kind of look over the top because my screen is kind of directly behind the camera. I'm going to be talking about both B2B and B2C. So, because here's something I found. You know what's interesting? It really is almost the exact same strategies. People always say in B2B prospecting, I'm dealing with facts, and B2C prospecting, I'm dealing with emotions. But you know what? Emotion works on both sides. Yes, it does. It really does. You got to think through. The difference is the time of day you might be prospecting, how you're prospecting, the messaging, and the outcome. The outcome in terms of the benefits. That's going to be the piece. So let's come back and let's look at this example in terms of where I was talking about the elevator running from floor to floor from a B to C example. The example I like to use here is I may have one strategy if I'm dealing with lower level people in an organization. You know, the elevator only goes to the second or third floor. But if I'm going to the top floor, I'm probably going to the CEO. So I'm going to have a completely different prospecting strategy. Yeah, but say the same thing as in a B2B. In a B2B situation, I may be dealing with a couple, okay, who maybe financial, you know, I'm dealing with financial planning, and I can get my conversation with one, but it's the spouse that really makes the decisions. I've got to be prepared to go both ways. So I've got to have two different strategies there. Now, let's roll on here. Let's take a look at question number 2. Who should you be prospecting and why? Now, this is something that really rubs me the wrong way. Just because, and you hear a dog barking outside right now, just because you hear a dog barking, it means it's got a heartbeat. You know what? That's just like some of our prospects. We tend to think just because somebody answers the telephone that they're a prospect. Well, just because they answer the telephone and make a comment or they respond to an email, they respond and, well, they've got a heartbeat. You're right, they've got a heartbeat. But so does that dog that is barking outside right now. That dog that is barking outside's got a heartbeat. But you know what? That dog is never going to buy from me. So what I got to be cautious of right here is a very simple problem. I don't want to be prospecting with people who just simply are going to respond. Now, the example I like to use is I can't take a Walmart shopper and make them a Nordstrom customer. It's not going to happen. But this is exactly what happens. This is why in both B2B and B2C, we wind up having to discount too many deals to close them. The reason we wind up having to discount too many deals is because we are actually prospecting the wrong person. So one of the strategies you have to be able to do is you have to be able to prospect and align yourself with the right prospect. Now, here's the whole critical issue with this. This means I've got to know who I'm going. Now, let's dig into a little bit more on this, and let's get into this third question here, and that is really ensure that we're getting good prospects. Now, this is a real challenge, and I want you to do something. First of all, look at your prospects from a size, number of employees, or demographic, or psychographic, or where they live, or whatever. You know, this is that typical B2B or B2C model. What you want to look for is the outcome. What is the outcome that customer receives? What is the outcome? And whatever the outcome that customer receives, that's what you want to be focused in on. So now, how do we really dig into this? Well, I got to make sure that I've got the right goals set up. Now, here's one of the challenges. Too many times we set the wrong goals from a prospecting standpoint. We set the wrong goals that, okay, I'm going to have 50 prospects or 100 prospects, and I expect to get 2 deals out of this, or 2 customers, or whatever it might be, or 3 customers or 4 customers. And I'll tell you what, that's actually the wrong goal to have. Now, that's the outcome you want to achieve. I certainly get that. But here's what's going to happen. You're going to wind up becoming so frustrated, if you wind up starting at the beginning, all these contacts, however I make the contacts, and I'm going to jump all the way to the end. Whoa. Because you know what? Many times it's a long road. So what I want to do is I want to set the right goals. Now, you're going to say, Mark, how does this help me ensure that I have the right prospect? This is very simply why. I want to be able to engage the prospect as early as possible in understanding what are their goals, what's their vision, what's the outcome that they're looking for. Now, there are 2 sets of goals and 2 sets of visions and 2 sets of outcomes that we're really going to be talking about here. And I got to kind of break these apart. The first one is for the customer. What is the outcome that the customer is looking for? Now, here's why. Here's what I want to do. I want to take all of my existing customers And do this on a piece of paper. Take all your existing customers and ask yourself this question. Why have they chosen to do business with me? Why have they chosen to do business with you? What was it? Now, here's the critical thing. Write down what you think, but then I'm going to challenge you and I'm going to ask you to pick up the phone and call them and ask them again. Because you know what's very interesting? Many times what happens is we think they've chosen to do business with us for one reason, but they've actually chosen to do business with us a different reason. And I got to know what is that different reason. Here's where I come into play. Here's where this comes into play. Go back to this example of the Nordstrom and the Walmart picture. What happens is we tend to think customers are looking for this. Customers are looking for price, 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 price. But really what they're looking for is an outcome, That's what they're looking for. I'll give you a very good example. I'll give you both an example in B2B and B2C. B2B. I recently had some water damage in my basement. I needed to get it fixed. And because I travel quite a bit, I didn't want to have my wife hassling with it. I found some people who could fix it. And you know what's interesting? Price never entered the equation. Price never entered the equation. I wanted to get it fixed. They actually were going to charge me less than what I was willing to pay. It's too bad because they left money on the table. They could have charged me more and I would have gladly have paid more. In a B2C situation, I was recently looking to buy a new software package to upgrade a number of things that we do here in my company. Yeah. You know what's very interesting? Price has nothing to do with it. I want to have a solution. My objective is how do I consolidate and make more efficient a whole number of things that we do on the back end now in the back office of my company on 3 or 4 different software platforms. And what we're looking for is we're looking to find one. Yeah, you see that? That's what I'm trying. So it doesn't matter. You see, yet what's funny is salesperson who had called me and we were working with on this software package began talking price way too soon. Whoa, you see, here's the whole thing. I never want price to come up in my early prospecting conversations. Yeah. Now, here's a critical question. We've got a whole bunch of more questions that have popped in. So, hey, hang in there, Russell. I'm going to get to your question regarding LinkedIn. Okay. So I'm watching some other questions come in. So we'll make sure to save time on that. Okay. Now, here's the whole thing on this. See, what happened was this customer, this salesperson, got me on the phone, got my business, and because the profile of my business was relatively small, I've only got like 3 people and myself, we're not big, he automatically assumed it was going to be a price play. And it wasn't a price play. It was not a price play. And what happened was he actually put price on the table too soon. Again, you know what happened? You know what's interesting? I wound up money that I would have paid. Oh, I'm happy. And you know what's interesting? That person, undoubtedly, if he was to be asked, how did he close the sale? It's because of price. Mark bought because of price. No, Mark didn't buy because of price. Mark bought because of the solution it was providing me. You see, one of the things that I want to do is, what are the goals? What are the vision? What's the objective you want to achieve? I can look at this from a B2B perspective. You're a financial planner. You're looking at this saying, what are your goals? Have you got kids that you need to put through college? Have you got some weddings that you're looking at? Have you got elderly parents that you're dealing with? Or are you just looking at retirement? Are you looking at retiring early? What are all of those objectives? And then you have to ask yourself, what's your tolerance of risk? What is your tolerance of risk and what's your lifestyle? All of those pieces that come into play. You see, here's my challenge. The earlier in the prospecting process I answer these questions, the better I'll be when I actually come to closing the deal. Why? Because of this. And again, I'll go really unpack this deep in a future session. When people are just conversing, They're much more open. As soon as you try to close the deal, or the customer senses you're trying to close, they begin to lock up. They begin to lock up. Now, goals, visions, from a salesperson standpoint, prospecting process. What I want to do is I want to measure each one of my steps in my prospecting process. Now, even the simplest, the most transaction-oriented prospecting process is going to have 3 steps. You're going to have the lead, qualifying the prospect, and close. More complex sale. And again, regardless, B2B or B2C, that you may have to have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 steps. But you've got to very much clarify what those steps are and know what the measuring pieces are on those. Because why? This is going to help you to determine whether or not this is a lead worth pursuing. Now, let me share with you something. You first begin as a lead in my book, and then you move to a suspect, and then you move to a prospect, and then you move to a customer. Let's walk through that again. Lead, suspect, prospect, customer. Let me break this down. Lead. All you are is you're a name, and I think there could be an opportunity there. That's a lead. Suspect. I'm engaging with you, but you haven't shared with me anything of value. I don't know what your goals and your visions are. I don't know what the outcome is that you're looking for. You can only become a prospect when I understand what those are. Then you're a prospect. Then you finally become a customer. See, then I can finally close you. And yeah, you see, I got to move. Now, I may have half a dozen steps in there, but here's the whole critical thing that a lot of salespeople make the problem of. They wind up with too many people in their sales funnel. And in fact, what happens is their sales, I look at my sales funnel as a pipeline. And too many of you have, boy, that's a glaring picture. I'm sorry. Too many people have a glaring picture that's nothing more than a sewer pipe. Let's get off of that picture. Let's jump over here. You see what you want to have is you want to have a water faucet. You want to have a water faucet. I don't want a sales pipeline with all of these leads in there just gumming everything up. Because here's what happens when it gums it up. I can't figure out what isn't. And what happens is the people who are gumming it up, the prospects that aren't going anywhere, what happens is they're gumming it up. And you know what's interesting? They're keeping me from spending time with my best prospects. My objective when it comes to prospecting is I want to be able to spend more time with fewer prospects. Now, does that mean I need fewer leads? No, it really means I probably need more leads. Why? Because I'm going to have to take more leads to put them through my process to understand if they're really just leads or suspects. Now, I'm not saying that you have a sewer pipe and you're going to throw all of these people out. Okay? No. I don't want you doing that. We got a lot more questions coming in, so that's great. And I will make sure that we get to all of this. One of the things you want to do when you pull your leads, you want to say, okay, I've got my leads here. What's my process? And can I qualify them? And then I move them back over here. Now, when I move them back over here, does that mean I get rid of them? No, I keep them around. Believe me, I keep them. Because you know what I want to do with every lead I have? I'm going to contact you today. I'm going to contact you again, and again. And then I'm eventually going to step away. And again, in a future session, I'm going to walk through what is the right cadence. And I'll break this down by a number of different industries. I'll walk through a number of industries in terms of what is the right cadence, what's the right frequency. But what you do is after you go through that cadence once, then you step back. You kind of move them over here. You put them aside for anywhere between 30 and 90 days, and then you pull them back in and you move them through. The objective being is I want to be able to move through my prospects as rapidly as possible. Now, when I move through my prospects as rapidly as possible, what does this allow me to do? It allows me to close more deals. Now, this is absolutely huge, because what I'm doing is with every lead I close, every lead I move from lead to suspect to prospect to close, I'm beginning to understand what it is that's tripping the trigger. Now, let's go back to this slide here where I had in terms of goals, visions, and so forth. You see, what I'm doing is I'm setting up a measurement system here of saying, I've got 100 leads here. I've been able to make contact with 35 of them. And I'm moving them through. I'm measuring myself as they go through. Now, here's why. A, I have to find out what works, but I also know that every day isn't going to be a, gee, I won the lottery type of day. There are going to be a lot of days that I'm prospecting that the results just aren't going to be there. So, results aren't going to be there in terms of closed sales, but they are going to be there because of connections I've made, information I've gleaned, relationships I've developed, follow-up meetings I've been able to secure, those types of things, you see? So what I want to do is I want to be able to have these 5 or 6 or 7 measurements in here that I can begin to move people through, that I can say, hey, you know what? I didn't close any sales today, but I had 14 people I was able to make contact with. 12 of them I had a great discussion with. 5 of them gave me a real critical piece of information. I had 2 calls. Yeah, you see, that's what helps me excited about what I'm doing. You see, what does that do? That gives me gas in my gas tank to come back and do it again tomorrow. Now, why do I like this so much? Because it motivates me. You see, one of the whole things is your prospecting process that you use has to be one that allows you to motivate yourself. That's why you have these various goals. And again, I'll be walking through all of these a lot deeper as we move through. But here's the big takeaway that I want you to really remember right now. 1, I do not want you just filling up your pipeline with a lot of suspects that aren't going anywhere, because that's your sewer line. What I want is I want to have a water tap that I feel very, very good with. Now, this water tap, I may only have 5 or 6 really good prospects that I'm moving through. But you see what I'm doing? I'm able to devote the right amount of time to close them. You know what this actually does? It actually gives me more time to pursue more leads. Because here's what I found happening. The majority of salespeople have pipelines that get plugged up in the middle. Now think about this from your own prospecting pipeline. They get plugged up in the middle. A question I love asking salespeople in both B2B and B2C is, when do you anticipate your deals to close? Let's look at your pipeline. What I find, the vast majority of salespeople, and this applies to both B2B and B2C, they have a lot of deals that are suddenly going to close right at the end of their month or their quarter. Now, give me a break. What's going to cause that to happen? The only thing that's going to, do you think your customers are sitting there cognizant of the end of your month or the end of your quarter? Now, we may have some automobile people on the call. You know what? The automobile industry has become known that you only buy your car the last week of the month, because that's when you're going to get the best deal. What comes with that best deal? It's because it's a lower price. You see, what I want to do is I want to prospect in a manner that I don't have to discount the price. The best leads, excuse me, the best leads are the ones that are the Nordstrom shoppers that I can make Nordstrom customers. Remember that slide earlier where I had with Walmart? Now, you may be in a low price business, and that's great, but the application still holds. You don't want to get it caught with all this stuff in your pipeline, because you want to be able to move those transactions all the way through. And probably even more so. Why? Because you're working on a thinner profit margin. You have less profitability built into your business. So you've got to be able to move them through that much faster. Now, let's take a look at the fourth one. What is the best way to use your time to prospect? This one, again, go back to what I talked about right up front at the top. Really bites a lot of people. Yeah, let me share with you this thing. You might be thinking about prospects. You might be thinking about your prospects, but they're not thinking about you. This drives me nuts. I will talk to salespeople. In fact, it's very funny. I was with a couple of sales organizations this week, one B2C and one B2B. And what was interesting is both of them, I was talking to various salespeople. They were kind of struggling and so forth. And they were telling me about prospects that they're and I asked them, I said, so have you talked to them? No. Well, why do you think they're thinking about you just because you're thinking about them? They're not. They're not thinking about you. You see, here's the challenge we have when it comes to prospecting. I've got to be able to use my time as efficiently and effectively as possible. Here's a picture of a freeway. And think about this. If you're on a freeway, you're on an interstate, you're on a major highway, the objective is to move from point A to point B as rapidly as possible, safely, without causing harm or damage to other people. That makes sense. What does this mean from your own prospecting time? How are you using your prospecting time? Now, this is one of the challenges, and this is one of the things that I want you to be doing. I want you to look at your prospecting process and ask yourself this question. How much of your time are you spending thinking about prospecting versus actually doing it? This morning, I happened to be looking at a sales automation tool. And it was very interesting, this sales automation tool, because wow, was it an efficient time saver. Yeah, because the whole idea was built by a software company in the software space. Because what they found was their salespeople were spending too much time in between calls. They were spending too much time. That's like being on the freeway doing 10 miles an hour. You can't do it unless you're in a traffic jam. And really, who wants to be in a traffic jam? Nobody does. So what do? You look for an alternate route. You see, my whole objective is I want to say, what is the best use of my time? Now, let's look at this from a perspective here. What I want to do is I want to set up my prospecting calendar to where I know tomorrow what I'm going to do today. The expression I like to use is tomorrow begins today. I never end the day without knowing exactly who the leads are that I'm going to be going after tomorrow. I never end the day. I want to always end the day knowing who are the leads I'm going after, because here's what happens. Otherwise, what happens is I come in and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to spend all this time chasing, looking around for information and never getting around. I'm going to be thinking about it, but not doing it. So what I do is I break my prospecting time into 3 windows. And this is what I'm going to encourage you. And this allows you to get in that lane on the freeway and move quickly. 1, who are the new leads I'm going to be going after? Boom. Who are the warm leads I'm very timely, specifically to follow up on? Okay. You may have 5 or 6 phone calls. You may have some correspondence you've got to get out, but there's some specific people that you know you have to follow up and see what are the ones that you're looking to take through to the close. I always break down my day that way before I end today. And what does that allow me to do? It allows me to move that much more efficiently. Here's one of the biggest problems. I'm going to put a slide up here in just a second that is going to upset some people. And I'm glad. Excuse me. It's going to upset some people, and I'm glad. But it's really about social media. You know, we got Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Yelp and Instagram and Pinterest and all those. Excuse me. I'm sorry. all these various things out there. Let me tell you something. And hey, go ahead and tweet this out. Socials, hashtag social selling without social community is social stupidity. Let me take a drink and I'll explain it. I absolutely apologize. What do we mean by this? I see too many people when it comes time to prospect. Well, let me go out and see if I got some new leads out on LinkedIn, or let me go see if I got some new likes out on Facebook or Twitter or whatever it might be. Well, let me tell you something. Or that's not going to get you anything. I can't eat clicks and likes. I can't eat retweets and all that sort of stuff. Can't do it. And wow, this was a really cute cat video. Let me push it out on social media. No, that's not going to cause the phone to ring. It's not going to cause. What I want to do, my whole objective with prospecting, and social media can play a part in it. It's about social connectivity. It's one-to-one relationships. Do not allow your time to get wasted playing around with social media. Now, social selling has a purpose. We'll deal with that later. Grab me later on that. But I get very strong on this because what I find is that I'm not engaged one-to-one enough. And that's my whole objective. Now, where am I going with this whole thing? Well, it's really about setting the right goals for yourself. Now, I want you to come back and think about some of the things I've been talking about in terms of finding the right prospect. One, what are the number of leads that you're starting out with? Now, do not take and just make it an absolute number. I'm going to start off with 20 leads. I'm going to start off with 50 leads. I'm going to start off with 100 leads. I'm not going to know until I've moved them all the way through the process. I have to. Now, that means I'm going to put X number of leads into my pipeline, and I'm going to work them until I see what comes out at the other end. I never make assumptions until I see the end result. This is why don't sit there and say, well, gee, I tried calling 100 people today and I only had one conversation. It was the time of day. Maybe it was the type of person you're calling. Maybe I need to go back and get some different leads. Maybe, don't just sit there and say the activity you throw away. Don't. Too many people wind up making a mistake like that. I look to do this. I want to take my prospects, my leads, and move them all the way through. And I'm never going to be in a position to evaluate my prospecting process. And I talk about this in my book, High Profit Prospecting. I'm never going to be able to really know for sure until I've gone through 2 lengths of my buying cycle. Bear with me. Hear me out on this. You may have a buying cycle that takes a typical customer 60 days. Maybe it's 30 days, maybe it's 60 days, maybe it's 6 months. Whatever it is you want to double that length before you begin to see as to whether or not the prospecting process doesn't work. You may have a prospecting process that takes 2 weeks, much like a transactional type of process. Fine. I'm not going to decide until I've gone through it for 4 weeks. Because I got to statistically get enough experience. You may have a timeline that is really a 6-month process. Sale. You may have it be a year. Guess what? It's going to take a year or 2 years for you to determine it. And don't. More people give up on prospecting way too soon, when all it takes is a little wiggle and a shake. Now, the wiggle and the shake, what I want you to do is I want you to think about this for a moment. Think about a recipe. If you do any cooking in the kitchen, or you go to a restaurant or something like that, you're going to find that there are some core ingredients that make up 80 or 90% of what you're eating, okay? But there's some spices, some seasoning, some techniques, some cooking methods that take that 80 or 90% of what you're eating and suddenly make it absolutely great. That's the trick with prospecting. Don't think that this piece is bad. It's just changing something, changing the time of day, the day of week, the questions you're asking, how you're approaching it. That many times is just that little piece, that little bit of salt or seasoning that you're adding to help make it work. Now, here's where this all really comes down to. What I find is amazing is this. Prospecting is a playground. Come back to this question. The example I used earlier when I had this playground picture up there was the kids on the playground equipment. Have you ever noticed the adults? Have you ever noticed the moms and the dads as they're sitting around the perimeter of the playground? Sure, they may very well be on their smart device. But you know what? They're probably striking up a conversation with the person next to them. A conversation, talking about how their kids play well together or something this, or talking about school or talking about that. And you know what's interesting? These are people who many times don't know each other until they got to the park. They got to the park and they found a common thread. These are people who would never ever talk to each other otherwise. They probably never see each other otherwise. But they saw each other at the park and they began talking. Now think about this for a moment. This is what prospecting is all about. Your prospects aren't waking up in the morning saying, oh, gee, by golly, I hope he calls me. I hope she calls me. No, they're not. They don't even know you exist. They won't know you exist until they reach a commonality. They won't know you exist until they reach a, ooh, yeah. You see, the commonality is your ability to develop the leads, to find the leads, to be able to reach out to them and share with them a common question, a common need that gets them discussing, gets them conversing with you what it is they're looking for. What does this mean? Prospecting is absolutely a kick in the pants. It really is. It's absolutely fun when it's done right. When I hear people say, oh man, I hate prospecting. I can't pick up the phone, or I can't do this, or I'm just going to send out emails, or I'm going to go to a social site. I'm going to go to Facebook and play around on Facebook. Oh, that drives me nuts. You will never achieve the level of success that you know you're capable of. Go back to this conversation of the adults sitting at the playground. Have you ever thought about this? Moms and dads, as they're watching their kids, they think their kids are the best. They think their kids are the best. Isn't that the same thing with what you sell? The service you provide, you think it's the best. So because you think it's the best, don't you think to our customers that way? Yeah. You see, my whole objective is to get you into a conversation with me. That's my whole objective. I can't determine whether or not I can close you until you first converse with me. I can't begin to converse with you until I first get a lead with you. Understand how this whole thing begins to work? You see, what I want to do is I want to figure out how can I prospect more effectively. Now, I wanted to go for 45 minutes and allow time for questions. So let me kind of move these questions over here so I can read them. And believe me, people, please fire away with the questions. My screen is frozen. Are there technical issues? I hope, Anna, I hope you got that solved. And don't worry about it. We're going to be sending out a replay on it. But hey, here's a question that came in. I was expecting that you were going to go through the Infofree website and show what businesses the leads are for. Oh, you know what? I'm going to do that in a different webinar. We're going to be very specifically hands-on for Infofree. So I apologize if you felt I was going to do it. What I want to do is just share with you a tool. Here's one of the things that I like that I'll say about the info. Just get in and play with it. But you know what? I'll make sure that we have a webinar just focused on just that. And you know what? If you send me a note, mark@thesalescenter.com, put Infofree up there and say, hey, this is my industry, this is my business. I'll make sure that we give you very specific examples just for your industry. How's that sound? That sound good? Now, Joe, hey, Mark, after connecting with CEOs, CFOs via LinkedIn or social media, what's the best follow-up approach without selling. Makes sense. Nobody wants to be sold. Nobody wants to be sold. Now, let's put the CFOs and CEOs aside. Let's think about this. Do you want to be sold? No. Nobody wants to be sold. And I don't care if this is B2B or B2C. What people want to do is they want to invest. But here's what I found. People only want to invest when they have a level of ROI, return on investment. Now, wait a minute. What do you mean by ROI? I mean a level of confidence. You see, what's very interesting is, let's use this example. I could go into Walmart. Since I used that picture of Walmart and Nordstrom earlier, I'll go and use that example again. I could walk into Walmart. There might be something there for $1.98. I wouldn't hesitate to buy it. Nope, no big deal. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it's only $2. Selling something cheap enough, I can go ahead and sell it. If I walk into Nordstrom's and there's a shirt for $200, I'm not going to spend $200 on that shirt. Just, oh, well, it's okay. If I get it home and I don't like it, it's okay. No. It better give me a lot of value. It better give me a lot of, and I'm not going to spend $200 on a shirt unless I had a lot of confidence in who I was buying it from, Nordstrom. But see, this is the same thing with your customers. They're not going to buy anything from you until they have a level of confidence with you. So now let's look at this from a CEO and a CFO perspective. I want to reach out to them. And oh, by the way, this is the exact same thing with homeowners. This is the exact same thing. People want to be talked to in a way that creates value for them. And they have to feel special. Now, what does this mean? I've got to be able to communicate to you in a manner that allows you to see one thing. Wow, he or she is talking about me. They're helping me. Now, one of the easiest ways to do this, connecting with a customer by using the name of somebody who they already relate to, they can connect to, they know. Yeah, you see, that's the power of referral in prospecting. Now, this works with a homeowner and this works with a CEO. It's very, very interesting. I love this approach because when I can get you on the phone or I can talk to you and I can say, hey, this person, oh, really? You know that person? Yeah, I know that person. Wow. What does that do? That gives them a level of confidence. So my first means is this. I'm going to come in and I'm going to use a prospecting by referral. Mark, I'm not sure who they know. I know, but you know what? If I'm prospecting in a geographical area, there may be a very prominent person in that community that you do know. If I'm prospecting in an industry, there may be a very prominent person in that industry. And you know what? I can at least reference their name. Let me give you an example. I live in Omaha, Nebraska. Now, what's very funny is I travel all around the world. In fact, next week, I'm going to be in Brazil. And people ask me, well, what brings you here? And why are you here? And why are you talking to us? And I'll say that I'm from Omaha. And they'll say, and I'll say, you know, what's interesting is, hey, I live in the same town as Warren Buffett. I've shared that comment with people all over the world. They go, oh, wow, that's really neat. And they automatically assume, because I live in the same town as Warren Buffett, I must know Warren Buffett. Okay, I really don't know. I've met him a couple times, but does he know me? No, I'm sure he doesn't. But just by association, you see what's interesting? What I want to do is I have to understand, or they have to understand that they have confidence. Has come in. This is great. Tell us more about the difference between suspect and prospect. Great question, because I kind of ran through that very quickly, so I'm glad. So keep these questions coming. Suspect and prospect. A suspect is somebody who may be able to buy from me. A prospect is somebody who is qualified to buy from me. Now, what do? I want to take a suspect, and you're a suspect with me until you have shared with me a piece of knowledge, a piece of information not known by other people. Now stop and think about this for a moment. You are not going to share with somebody a piece of information not known publicly about yourself or about your company unless you had a level of confidence with the person you were speaking to and you had a level of interest with what they were selling. So one of the things that I always use as a measurement is you will always be a suspect with me, a critical insight not known publicly. Let's use a B2B example. Let's use a B2C example. B2B example. Until they share with you what their income is. Okay, that's not known publicly. Wow, that's a personal piece of information. You see, they're not going to share that with you until they really have interest with you, until they have confidence with you. A B2C, it might be something like the fact that they're going to be expanding into a new city. They're going to be expanding into a new town, or they're going to be rolling out with some new products. Information that's not known to other people, but it's critical to you. You see, what does this do? This now begins to tell you. Now, there are actually several other criteria that I like to use, but I use that one as the first one. That's the first one. Because if I can't get you, a suspect, to share with me a piece of information, why should I continue to spend time with you? And see, what's very interesting is this is one of the questions that I love asking salespeople when I look at their sales pipeline. I'll look at their sales pipeline, and it's full of all these callbacks, all these people I want to follow up with. And I go, what do you know about them? What have they told you that's not known publicly? And many times it's a big fat goose egg, nothing. Times are you going to be kicking that cat? It just doesn't make sense. Now, we got some more questions here, and let me run through them here. Let me get down here. Will there be a, this is a good one. How many times should I be contacting somebody? Here's the strategy that I like to use. And again, I'll devote a webinar just to this. Whatever you think is the right frequency, you can double it. You can double it. Wow, what do you mean? Yeah, this is what's very interesting. Do you believe in what it is that you sell? Well, yeah, you believe what you sell. Do you believe that you can help customers? Yeah, I do. I really do. Have you had success with other customers? Yeah, I do. Yeah. Then isn't it important for you to tell those people as rapidly as possible, as quickly as possible, the benefit you can do? Yeah, that means you gotta bug them. Now, I'm not saying to bug them to the point that they don't. What I'm saying is you bug them with critical new information. One of the things about prospecting with your leads is I always believe this: never approach them with the same information twice. Never approach them with the same information twice. I'm going to do a webinar just on voicemail, but I'm going to share with you something. You never leave that person the same voicemail twice. I always leave them different pieces of information. Here's why. What I'm doing is I'm creating value with you. You may not see value in the first piece of information, but you see value in the second. You see value in the third. You see, somewhere along the line. You see, this is what gives me the ability to contact you more frequently than you may think, because the person who contacts you and says, have you made a decision yet? Then you call them up tomorrow. Have you made a decision? You reach out. Have you made a decision? Have you made a decision? Have you made a decision? Quit bugging me. You are bugging me. But if I'm sharing with you something different, hey, just had a customer yesterday who did this. Hey, saw some new insights regarding this. Hey, we got a new way that we can approach this. Now, what am I doing? I'm sharing with you different opportunities with which to win. What does that mean? You have the ability to win more. Yeah. Now, what does that also mean? It means you are not allowing yourself to get caught up in price. Now, let me get to another question. Just come in. Hi, Mark. So prospects want to become your customers and to buy from you when they trust you enough. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hey, we got somebody from Finland on this call. This is absolutely terrific. I love it. Yeah. You see, what's interesting is when they become prospects, then they are far more likely to buy from you. But I'm still not going to jump in. I'm still not going to jump in and put price on the table. Now, we'll get into that later on down the road because we're still kind of this prospecting phase. But yeah. How do you find new prospects? Hey, great question. This is why you need a tool like Infofree. Because what Infofree is going to allow you to do is going to allow you to sort through database. And you can use all of the different measurements on all of the different tools. Now, here's what I'm going to suggest you do. Millions and millions of contacts. Don't start wide. Start narrow. Pick a very tight slice. Test those first. Put them through your system. Contact them enough time to see if whether or not, and if they don't, then try a different slice. One of the biggest challenges people have when they get into a database is they try to select too many too quickly. And what happens is it overwhelms them. And it overwhelms them, and you have ability to make one contact, but you never have a chance to do a follow-up contact. I would rather have 25 contacts that I'm working diligently than have 1,000 that I never get around to doing. Now, see, I'll get to the 1,000. But it comes just step at a time. And I guarantee it, you'll have more success. Why? Because this is what I've been teaching for 15 years to organizations all over the world in B2C and B2B and even what we call B2G. B2G, you never heard of B2G? Business to government. Yeah, business to government. Huge business there. And prospecting, just the same. I'll argue this, that there's a lot of business to be had by prospecting business to government that doesn't require RFPs and bids and quotes and all that sort of stuff. Ooh, but that's a secret sauce recipe I'll share with you later. And don't think that's only for B2B, because that's B2C players get to play in B2G also. And again, I'll share with you that technique when we get further down the road in a later webinar. Now, back to finding new prospects. My argument is this: base, take it narrow, work them all the way through. Frequency, double what you thought you could do. But here's one thing to keep in mind. Go back to that very first slide I shared. What was it? Prospect with integrity, and you get customers with integrity. Because what is my job? What is my duty? To earn the right honor and respect to be able to meet with you again. When I do that, ooh, you know what that does? That allows me to have even more success. Because here's what I found. The best database, I use those leads. And you know what that's going to do? Is I get success with those leads. It's going to point me back to more leads I can use, and more leads and more leads. You see, so what I do is I actually find a way to take my database over and over and over again. Hey, I wanted to run this webinar right at an hour, and we're coming up on an hour right now. But hey, here's a couple things I want to leave with you. One, feel free to contact me by way of any of these social media websites. But here's what I'm going to ask you to do. You got questions? Fire them to me. Send them to me. My email is mark@thesaleshunter.com. Put in the subject line, info free, and I'll make sure to answer your question immediately. I'll make sure I answer all the info free questions that come in today. I'll get them answered. Now, you will be getting a replay of this, and we're going to be doing a lot more of these webinars, because my objective is, over the course of these webinars, I'm going to show you very specifically how you will benefit, how you will make money, by using Infofree as your lead generation tool. But I'll be digging into that. And along the way, I'll be sharing with you a lot of insights out of my book, High Profit Prospecting. Now, again, the email, mark@thesaleshunter.com. Send me that email. And oh, by the way, you know what I'll do with all those questions that come in? We're putting together a question and answer board on Infofree. We're putting it together for all the Infofree customers, and all of those questions, I'm going to put all those answers. They're all going to go into that. So you know what it's going to be? It's going to become your very own chat board. It's another reason why you're going to want to check out Infofree, because I think that chat board alone is going to be a pretty powerful tool for you. So again, my name is Mark Hunter, the Sales Hunter. The website, thesaleshunter.com. But hey, you probably already figured that one out. And hey, my objective is to help you help your customers achieve outcomes that they did not think were possible. Think about that for a moment. If I could help you help your customers achieve outcomes that they didn't think was possible, wow, we all succeed. We all win. Hey, Mark Hunter, the Sales Hunter, great selling. Thanks for being on the call today.